Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Teams Day Online. I hope everyone is enjoying your conference today. I'm really excited to be here with you to talk to you about creating a curated experience in Microsoft Teams. My name is Michelle Gilbert, and I am a Microsoft Teams technical specialist. Here's an image of me along with how you can get in touch with me. I also lead the Minnesota M365 user group and admin workshop conference. I'm also a former Microsoft MVP and Office 365 solution architect here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You can connect with me, like I mentioned, through email, on LinkedIn. Please let me know where we met. And then, of course, you can follow me on Twitter. I try to keep up to date on all the new technology features and like to post them and share them, and also participate in many conferences like this. So I'm really excited to be here. We could not do this without our sponsors. So a big shout out to the conference sponsors because they really provide us with the capability to give back to the community by presenting these great sessions. All right, today the agenda is developing governance, applying governance, and from that, creating a curated experience. I'm just going to do a check to see, looks like everything's working, and let's go ahead and move forward and do our session. All right, developing governance. I'm going to share with you how to develop governance to support your organization's communication and collaboration needs. This session is pretty short. It's 40 minutes. So I don't have an entire day like I would have to talk to you about governance. So we're going to keep it really small and short. But really, to me, developing governance is about finding out how to best service all the M365 technologies, and then bring those services to your end users. So having a right balance to meet those worker needs. And governance can be about enforcement, control, enablement, and support. And finding that right balance is key to technology empowerment for your business. And it's not about control versus usability. Instead, control and usability. So when properly supported, governance is really that balance between speed and agility, accelerating innovation, reducing the overall cost of change, reduction in time to market, and providing the opportunities to meet your organizational needs. All right, so how do you create governance? I think the first step is by identifying stakeholders and develop a governance board to broaden the knowledge of all the areas of Microsoft 365. The stakeholders may range from product owner, administrators, networking, to executives, but everybody has a stake in the claim of how Office 365, or rather M365, is run within your environment. And they have opinions, and they really need to lead and lean in to these services, as it will really provide a change experience within their organization. So how do you do that? You have to figure out what's the responsibility and the roles related to how to manage all these complexities. So here I've provided just a sample RACI matrix. Once we've developed the who, as you saw on the last slide, now we can figure out the roles, the responsibilities, and align them with those particular users. And this can vary in every organization based on your size and resources. Here is a way that you can quickly get off the ground and running when it comes to a RACI matrix. There is the R is for responsible, the A is for accountable, the C is for consulted, and the I is for informed. So figuring out in your organization who is in charge of strategy, governance, operations, change management, and so forth, and then aligning with what their RACI role is, and really putting it out here where it's documented. You can easily go back to it and know who should be informed or consulted when there's an adoption change. So now The next step is to discuss who are your employees and what are their technology needs. In doing this exercise, you can determine what applications are most important and find the right balance for the technology empowerment all across your business. And this is just a sample of company personas that are most common across various industries. As you can see here, we've got deployment team, and that could be many of you that are listening in right now. How do I deploy it? How do I curate it and make a better experience? And then you have information workers, and this makes up a good chunk of an organization, those who are coming into the office and at this time, maybe even working from home, and they have tasks that they do related to on their laptop or their computer. Then you have first line worker. Those are folks that they're the first line to your customers. They could be anywhere from construction workers, retail workers, nurses. They are the people who have a different, unique experience when it comes to how they communicate or collaborate. And then we have kind of this other scenario here, and this could be an executive persona, or it can be other, whether it's maybe consultants that you have in your organization where you want to limit their use. And you do that by saying, you know what, we're only going to allow them to have certain applications. And I'll get into that too. So how do you apply governance? Really, by doing this, you're providing applications to the personas that you just developed with your governance board. You know, now that we've established the governance, now we have to think of what are all the ways that people are using M365 technologies and specifically Microsoft Teams, and how can we provide an experience that really works for them and makes it really easy to use. So Microsoft Teams is an opportunity to meet your people where they already are. In Microsoft apps, of course, those are the first party apps. Currently, there's 45 available. I know that those do grow. We've seen it over time with the advent of Planner, Microsoft Forms, and so forth. The next we have is third-party apps. Currently, they say 450. I think there's over 500 now, and those range all the way from MailChimp to Salesforce and even YouTube. And then, of course, we have custom apps, and a lot of organizations today are developing custom apps to make business line integration and bring that into Teams to make it really one-stop seamless area for all the employees to work. So whether that's doing productivity or using employee services or approvals, workflow, new processes, there's really unlimited possibilities here in the custom app range. And so how do you create custom apps? You can do that with Power Platform, and that is your low, no code tools to get you started. You can also do it with production ready app templates that are already out there. There's 30 and growing. Those are really great to check out to see what can be of value and make everything a little bit easier inside of Teams. And then building it from scratch. A lot of developers out there that are starting to do bots, MS Graph, tabs, messaging extensions, and so forth. So these are all the different applications. And so you think of, okay, we need governance, but we have to figure out how do we build that? And with all these applications, how do we control it? And best, how do we deliver a great experience? And that's really done through Teams application governance. And really because of the fast growing amount of applications available to empower employees to be more productive and efficient, we need to establish governance and create policies that align with our organizational data and security requirements. We can do this in the Manage Apps section in the Teams Admin Center and really review all the details, categories, certificates, compliance requirements, or compliance different requirements that you may have and align them to those applications as they state inside of the applications what they are certified in. So extremely important. I always recommend to customers review all the applications and really simply toggle on or off whether you allow the application to be used. Next, we can create permissions to those apps based on developing policies that match personas in the app permission policies section. So as you can see before you, you've got Contoso, which is a fictitious company, and my demo tenant in the screenshot. Contoso represents like our org-wide what we want the standard to be. And then you can create policies like executives, first line worker. You can have it as curated as you would like. And I'll walk through the kind of the standard curation experiences I have helped other customers deploy. But really, we can control what apps are available to those employees by choosing which Microsoft, third-party, and custom apps that are allowed in your organization. I always say best practice, definitely allow all Microsoft applications if you're licensed for them, but then start reviewing the third-party applications. In this example, you see a custom application, and that's called Contoso Landings. That's actually the name of the intranet that I had built out, and you can bring the intranet into Microsoft Teams. Actually, it was announced at Ignite last week that you're going to be getting what's called a home app, and that is bringing your SharePoint intranet into Teams. You can do it today through App Studio, and soon you'll be able to easily do it and have that pre-built for you in your store. All right, we can also establish app setup policies that again align to our personas. In the app setup policies, we can control who can upload apps and even pin them. But more importantly, we can customize the side rail in the Microsoft Teams web and desktop client and the bottom rail in mobile to highlight the apps most important for those employees. All right, next section is curated experiences. Now that we have developed our governance board, we've created personas and developed policies for each persona. Let's review what they may look like. All right, here's our sample company personas from before. We have a deployment team, information worker, first line worker, chat, and intranet. So these are 4 different types of personas that are really commonly found in organizations today. And we have developed custom app setup policies and custom app permission policies for the experience for each of these personas. All right, let's go take a look at what they look like. All right, here's Alan. He's on the deployment team. He, in his setup policy, he has the ability to upload custom apps. And that makes sense because he is a tester of those applications. He can allow pinning on the side rail, or even allow pinning to the mobile device. That would be the same experience. And then he has a select amount of pinned apps. So all of those apps is what he's going to see when he first opens Teams. And then on the right side, we have permission policies. And again, because he is on the deployment team and he does a lot of testing, it makes sense to have all the Microsoft apps, all the third-party apps, and any of the custom tenant apps that are created available to him. So this is what his experience will look like. As he goes into Teams, he sees everything on the left-hand side. So he can also pin them and unpin them. And in this particular instance, he's testing out a Power App called Team Request Form that they're going to deploy. And so he has that in front of him. So just a really rich experience, but catered to him because he is the IT director and he is in charge of deploying Teams and really wants to be that person that can test and touch and really experience all the things that Teams has to offer to figure out what will make sense for those other personas. All right, meet Megan. She is an information worker. She has custom pinned apps, so she has a very curated experience, and she also cannot upload custom apps. Why that's important is because she's not a developer, We may have a persona for developers that we may want to have that they can go, they are allowed to create Power Apps, they're licensed for it, and they can deploy it to teams and soon even create them inside of teams. So that's why she cannot upload custom apps. Megan also has access to all the Microsoft apps in the permission policy. The organization only allows 3 of the third-party apps, though, because they've all been approved. They've been through the approval process. The deployment team has reviewed them and allowed them to be a part of the organization. And I'll talk about best practices and how to review those applications. And then she does get 2 tenant apps to see the intranet and Teams training. Both of those are SharePoint sites wrapped around kind of an iframe, if you will, and pinned on the side rail in Microsoft Teams. So let's go take a look and see what that looks like. All right, this is her experience. So Megan comes in as an information worker, and as she comes in here, you can see on the side rail, she has Contoso landings, the SharePoint intranet, and then Teams training, which Teams training, if you're not aware, that is an M365 learning pathway site. And it is all of the video trainings that you need for deploying inside of your organization to get ramped up on Teams. So I always recommend deploy that M365 learning pathway site template, and then grab the Teams training link and bring it in here as an app in Microsoft Teams. Just a simple way to get everyone ramped up on Teams training, and it's live, so it's always updated. So you don't have to curate those learning documents any longer. You can have it out there and everyone can experience it. As a matter of fact, you could make that application in your Teams store, as well as after a duration, you can remove or even just keep it out all the time. All right, so this is Megan's experience. Now let's go take a look at Adele. Adele is a first-line worker. She has 4 custom pinned apps that are approved for her role: activity, shifts, chat, and calling. She cannot upload custom apps, nor can she pin apps. We want to make a very easy experience for her where things don't get complicated. Her day job is not on a computer the entire day or on her mobile device. So we want to make it super simple. So that's her setup policies. Now, in her permission policies, what we've done is we created, again, both of these are first line worker unique policies. And in the permission policy, we've said you can use all the Microsoft apps because you are licensed for them. However, only one third-party app makes sense for her, and it's Kronos, because we have an integration to Kronos because that's a business line application that's used in this organization. Next, we have 2 custom apps. We want her to have access to Contoso landings, again, a SharePoint site, and Teams training. And Teams training is for getting wrapped up on Teams and really being able to learn on demand. And so these are the applications that she has. What you notice between the 2, hopefully you have already, I didn't pin the tenant apps, the custom apps called Contoso landings or Teams training to the pinned apps. Those are available for her to discover in the store along with Kronos. So when she goes into the store, the only applications she's going to see are the ones that we have allowed for her to see. All right, let's see what she sees. All right, this is Adele. She's coming to Microsoft Teams. And what do you see on the left-hand side? Exactly what our policy was for first-line workers. We have activity, we have shifts, we have chat, and we have calls. And if she wants to go out and take a look at Contoso landings or Teams training, she can go and click on the ellipsis and search on it, or simply go down to the icon apps and then go and look for those applications. So a different experience than Megan previous to her, who was the information worker. Adele sees her shift. She can request a shift. She can swap shifts. She can see shift notes. And so there's a lot that she can do inside of this application that's really geared towards how she works. And she can also get that same experience on her mobile device. So as she is moving about through the plant floor, or even at home and wants to look at her shifts, she can open up the Teams app, and on the bottom she's going to see activity, shifts, chat, and calls. And all those are going to be the same seamless experience that she has on her desktop. So very curated, very simple, very easy to use. So now let's go take a look at Lee. Lee is an executive. He has 2 custom pin apps available to see. Really the request for this was we have a group of executives that work in a certain way. They're in board meetings all the time. How do we make Teams really easy to use? And so it's not distracting. And the best way to do that is by really curating it down to say, hey, we're only going to allow intranet and chat. So he cannot upload custom apps, nor can he pin apps. Lee can also use all the Microsoft apps and get 2 tenant apps to have immediate access to the internet and can do a lookup for the intranet. So really, Lee works differently from the rest of the organization and does not need to have access or view all the applications. So looking deeper in the setup policies, you can see there, he can't upload and he can't pin. So hopefully there won't be any distractions in his experience. He can have 2 pinned apps. He can get to the SharePoint intranet, Contoso landings, and he can easily get to chat. So he can chat as quick as possible, see something on SharePoint, and then put it down. Now, in the permission policy, what we have there is we said all Microsoft applications you can get to, and you can still get to them inside of the Teams store. However, we have blocked all third-party apps. And the tenant apps that you can, or that Lee does have access to, hopefully he can get to the one that we pinned for him. So that's Contoso landings. However, the Teams training one, we weren't ready to deploy Teams training to the executives yet. So we're having everyone else test it. And then for the executives, there'll be that final phase when everybody feels comfortable with it. And we want to provide them more training and get them ramped up on more part of Teams. So they can find it in the store, but it is not pinned for them. So just a really simple experience. So let's go take a look at what Lee's experience is inside of Teams. All right, here's Lee. He comes in, he sees he has a chat from Megan. And then on the left-hand side, he has Contoso landings, so he can get to the intranet. And that's all embedded inside of Teams in line. And then he can chat. And this is his same experience on the mobile device. So he'll see SharePoint intranet and chat on his mobile device. Just a really seamless, easy experience, curated, crafted just for him. All right, so those are the 4 personas. And a lot of people find it really interesting, like how could they really deploy this inside of their company? Remember the first part, we talked about governance, and it really requires, I believe, a governance board to think of all the different possibilities, how we could put control and also add value for these personas in your organization. So I've come up with what I call Microsoft third-party and custom app management. And what my recommendation has always been, along with your governance board, is really reviewing all of them. And you can do this by having an Excel spreadsheet. You could do it in a SharePoint list. You could do this in Planner. But really the whole key here is to take those 500 plus applications and review them with your entire board, because you do need security. You may need networking. You may need legal. Everyone might want to weigh in on those applications, especially if there might be a security risk, or maybe something has to do with data retention, or e-discovery. So all these topics are certainly extremely important to different stakeholders. So bring them all in, review the applications by identifying their purpose and business value, categorizing them really simply, you know, in a SharePoint column, put a category and say, hey, do we already own it? Are we trialing it right now? Or is there no business demand? And that will really make it super easy and squish what you need to focus on. Because if you own it, then enabling it just really extends the integration into teams. However, you may be trialing it at a business level, and you may want to see what the integration is inside of teams. And then if there's no business demand at that point, maybe there's no reason to have that exposed or available for everyone to see in the store. And then you want to determine vendor relationship. Extremely important. Do you already have a vendor relationship with those application companies? And if you do, okay, that's a really great step, because then you already know, hey, let's talk about what do we get with this application, and using it in teams and learning more from the vendor. And then of course, as your Office 365 service owners, the last thing you want to do is add another application to support with all the other Microsoft applications you have. So determining the internal support or product owner of that application is really key. And the reason, I mean, there's several reasons, but one of the strongest ones I hear is that the issue that you could have maybe with a Teams app, a third-party app, and then the employee calling help desk and saying, yeah, something's wrong with such and such app, or I'm not, getting a good connection, or whatever the case. Whatever your service desk process is, the last thing you want to have happen is to go to the Office 365 team. So making sure you communicate who supports each application. So like I said, that documentation is so important. Determining the internal support, the product owner, making sure help desk knows that when somebody calls, where can they best direct route them, and then making sure you have a support owner for each application. Really critical steps, but there's more. You need to create a whole application process. You may have business owners or even business lines that really want to use a certain tool. They saw it, they heard about it. Maybe you never shut it off, and so they've been trialing it themselves without you knowing. That's always a possibility. So you want to make sure you have an application request process for the business. So if they want to use SurveyMonkey, they want to use any other applications out there, ServiceNow, that you have a process that gets reviewed by the governance board, meaning all the stakeholders. Extremely critical if you want to go ahead and connect to ServiceNow. Maybe perhaps you have a ServiceNow owner on the governance board, because you need to have help desk represented. And then of course, defining the application approval process. Is it everyone on the board? Is there a lead approver? Is it security? Is security the right group to always approve? So really understanding what's the approval process. And then once you do get it approved, you have to communicate back to the person who requested it. But then you have to figure out a schedule to test that application. So going back to our personas, there was the deployment team. And the deployment team would probably be the best fit to test the application, get it working, maybe add single sign-on, confirm we have licenses, all the right licenses, do any sort of testing if we wanted to do more security testing on it. And then once that happens, now remember our app policies that we talked about, app permission policies? Now we have to determine a schedule to add the app to those policies after approval. So then you make sure that you assign it to the person who requested it. So really thinking through how to best develop your personas, and knowing that you need to enforce, but you also need to allow flexibility and people to feel empowered. And so knowing what that is in your organization is going to be unique for each company. And so really reviewing your applications, creating an application process will really make you more successful in determining all those experiences for all of your different personas in your organization. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and walk through what we just learned. We learned how to create personal experiences in teams to meet your worker needs. I hope you begin your own journey to empower all your employees by developing governance, applying that governance, and creating curated experiences. So with that, I would like to go ahead and just open it up for questions if you have any. I'll go ahead and moderate. And at the same time, your feedback is really valued. We love having these types of sessions in these conferences that are free, available for everyone to learn. So as much feedback as we learn from you is how we can craft it and curate your experience the next time around. So thank you very much. And I'm happy to stick around for any questions you have in the Q&A. All right, looks like there is a couple. Hey, Heather Severino. Awesome. I absolutely love that you're here. All right, well, I'm going to stick around, and if you have any questions, I will be here just waiting to answer them. Thank you so much.